Hey everybody, Jillian here. I hope you guys liked that quick peek at the brand new Illustrating Bible from Dayspring. This is the NIV version. It comes in two colors. I opted for the gray one because I love neutrals. And I'm going to create a page in here now. I like to alternate between using my interleaved journaling Bible and the Illustrating Bible when I don't necessarily want a whole page in my interleaved, but I want more space than a typical like 2.5, 2-inch margin journaling Bible. One of my favorite things to use the Illustrating Bible for is to document sermon notes. If you've seen a few of my pages, you may have noticed I'm quite the note taker, and so this affords me plenty of space to be able to include a lot of those notes. So I grabbed my dot journal that I like to use for my quiet time, that I use to record prayers in, and I also take it to church with me so I can keep my sermon notes in there. Everything in one spot, and I really like that. I'm going to try like a new-ish technique here on my page. I wanted to have a really fun and bright and colorful background, but I didn't want to get out all of the supplies that I would need, like my paint palette and different brushes and things like that, in order to mix the shade that I want and all that sort of stuff. So this is quite honestly born out of a little bit of laziness. So I'm going to use a dry brush technique. Can you call it a technique? I'm going to use a dry brush with some paint that I just plopped down into the margin of my page, and I'm just going to put the color around and then blend it here. Going to bed last night, had this idea for like a color combo, coral and like a sherbet color, and then this really pretty purplish pink. So that's what I ended up with here. I'm going to add a little more paint because I want to tone down this purplish pink. I'm going to include more of that in my second layer, and then add a little bit more of this sherbet color. And so I'm just swiping the paint on with the dry brush so I get the texture from the bristles, and that's pretty much it. It's super simple. A really great thing about using acrylic paint in your Bibles is that it doesn't bleed through, so that's always nice. It kind of acts as a barrier for anything that you might layer on top, and you'll see what I mean here because I'm going to layer a lot more stuff on top. I'm going to go back in with this sherbet color to kind of tone it down a little bit in a few areas before I hit that with my heat tool and then move on to the next part. Next, I grabbed the Lauren washi tape from the Illustrated Faith shop. It's a great, just black and white little micro dot washi tape, super neutral and goes with anything. I am ripping off a few pieces to place in the background so that, it's kind of just a different element hanging out in the background other than paint. And then I have this stencil, I think it's from Dilutions. I'll link the specific one down in the video description box below the video. And I'm going to use this Dina Wakley Media Gloss Spray. I really wanted a saturated, bright color to live on top of the coral and the sherbet. So I'm holding the stencil a little bit away from the page and then just spraying this acrylic paint spray essentially through the stencil. It gets everywhere. So I'm glad I had two Bible mats to make this happen today so I didn't get it on my desk or on the Bible text. I hit that with my heat tool, but I'm just going to put it to the side and let it finish drying naturally while I move on to the next part of my page. I knew I wanted to have a place to house my journaling, so I looked through my stash, pulled out a bunch of stuff, but finally settled on these Big Story 1 journaling spots that Shauna Noel created. I love these so much, and I really like the way that this sienna color kind of pops up off of the pink. Then I found this old sticker sheet. I think I bought it a couple of autumns ago, and this floral was just a really great match for the colors that I was using, so I'm going to go ahead and layer this on top of this little journaling spot. Next, I'm going to pull out the alpha stickers that I had kind of pulled from my stash that are in coordinating colors for this entry, and I'm going to spell out the title Uncomf Jesus across the top of my Bible mat. I'm using just different kind of older stickers here. If I can find something similar, I'll link them for you down in the video description, but really just use whatever you have. I didn't have an E, for instance, to spell Jesus' name, so I just grabbed another alpha in a coordinating color, and then I'm going to spell out the second part here. For those of you who may be new here, I like to line up all of my alpha stickers across the top of a Bible mat so that before I go to stick them down, I can kind of get an idea of where I want them to live before I stick them down and then change my mind and then have to try and peel them back up and put them down again. So you can see here it's just super simple. If I leave the top like third or two-thirds of the if I leave the top 2/3 of the sticker hanging off the top, I can just easily press it down with my finger and pull the mat back. You may be asking, why this title, Jillian? Well, I'll tell you, because that was the name of the sermon series that my church went through a couple months ago. I'm just getting around to journaling these notes. They seem pretty timely, so I didn't want to spell out the whole word uncomfortable, so I just kind of abbreviated it here. Why not? And then there's a little bit of like blank space in between the word uncomf and the label or the journaling spot, so I'm going to put this little piece of white polka dot transparency that I had laying on my desk from another project, just kind of fit that in there to fill up that space and make me feel better about things. Because otherwise, that little gap would bother me. And then I'm just going to start writing my notes. So I'm in Mark chapter 8, verse 34 and 35. Jesus is speaking to his disciples. It says, "Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it.'" My pastor preaches from the NLT, I'm pretty sure, and the word used for loses or give up literally means to destroy, to intentionally do away with. So destroy your life, intentionally do away with your life being your will, your preferences, and instead submit to God and His preferences. Then I'm going to pull out the Pepper Alpha stamp that's in the Illustrated Faith shop to document the 3 points of a footpath or even like a challenge that our pastor gave us to get uncomfortable for Christ's sake. I'm almost done with my note-taking portion of this, but before I finished, I wanted to be sure to add what I thought was the most crucial part of the sermon, or what I really walked away with. Is this why you're not supposed to end a sentence with a preposition? Anyway, the big thing that jumped out at me was being a Christian isn't being affectionate toward a belief system. That was kind of how he wrapped it up, and I was like, oh wow, am I like that? So anyway, just a great opportunity creating in the margin here to kind of reflect on those sermon notes again and not just leave them in my notebook, never to be seen or read or thought about ever again. Then I grabbed one of my perhaps favorite stamp sets of all time, the 2019 Word Nerd stamp from Illustrated Faith. I think they just restocked this in their shop. It's just such a great, versatile stamp set that you can use for Bible study or even here sermon notes. And so I'm just going to put this in a few places around the page. To stamp on top of all of these layers of paint and slick surfaces, I like to use StazOn Jet Black ink, and then I also wanted to mention too, I'm using a Zig vellum writer to write on top of all of these different mediums so that it doesn't tear up the nib of my pen, because I've done that and the pen is useless. I want to add a tab to the top of my page, and so I found one in a coordinating color, and then this really fun bow clip. I think it's from my friend Kristen. Thanks, Kristen. She makes really great ones. And then I'm going to find some word fetty and put that up at the top here along with some more of that Lauren washi tape. I'm going to top all of this off with the Illustrated Faith Date It roller date stamp, which has a nice little rotary spinner that you can select different sentiments with. So I spun it to the one that says sermon to note that these were sermon notes and then the date that I journaled it. And that's it. So here is a finished look at my page with a couple of close-ups. Don't forget, the new Illustrating Bible from Dayspring, the NIV, is now available for pre-order, and then I think it becomes available on August 31st for regular order it and get it. So thank you so much to Dayspring for sending me the Bible. And thank you for watching. I've got the sermon audio linked down in the video description below if that's something that you guys want to check out, along with the things that I used today as best as I could find them. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you soon.